when we found out that YWAM was canceling our outreach, we still had 2 weeks left of our like lecture phase. And so they told us, and I decided like, oh, like, I'm gonna stay for the end of lectures, and then I'll figure it out after what's gonna happen. And like they had originally had options for our outreach of like postponing it to later, and then us all coming back to another time. And they had different things that it was gonna look like for us coming back, and then we weren't sure like anything. But the only thing I knew was like, oh, I'm just gonna stay and finish off the lecture phase. And so we had 2 weeks left, and then that was what we did. And I finished my lectures, and then we were in the last week of it, and then they said we're closing the like borders of like Western Australia on Wednesday. And I wasn't planning on if I was going to leave, I wasn't planning on leaving until at least the Sunday, and like the following Sunday. So I'm like, I still have a whole week left. And Monday morning, we had our first lecture like of the week, and I was sitting there, and I was like kind of praying like, God, like, do you want me to stay? Do you want me to go home? Like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Like, I didn't know if I was gonna stay and like be stuck in Australia, or if I was gonna try and get home. And we just found out before class that like the borders were closing, and we weren't gonna be able to leave on Wednesday. Like, if I stayed past Wednesday, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I just need to know like if I need to go home, or if I should just stay. The person leading the class was like, it was like all of the students in one class, and he was talking about missions and like different things. And anytime he needed to use an example of a country, he said Canada. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, why is he saying Canada so much? Like, pick a different country. Like, and then he said, I don't know if anybody needs to go to Canada for missions or to go home, but if you need to hear the word Canada, I'm going to say it one more time. And then he said Canada. I'm like, oh, that's me. Like, I guess I'm going home. So then I went to my leader, and I was like, hey, like, I need to figure out how I'm going to get home. I talked to Anna. I was like, hey, I'm going home. I don't know how I'm gonna get there, or what it's gonna look like. And she's like, I need to go home too, like, but I need to go get my temporary passport, because she had just sent her passport away to the Canadian Embassy in Sydney to have it renewed and sent back to Canada before outreach, because her passport would expire past that 6-month date that you're supposed to be up to code with if you're leaving the country or whatever. So she's like, I still have to go get that and figure out what that's going to look like before I can even get home. I was like, okay, well, I'll go with you, and we'll figure out, like, so that you don't have to figure out alone and whatever. And then we were on the phone all of Monday afternoon trying to find out if there would be a flight to get to Canberra, which is like an hour outside of Sydney, to get this temporary passport. We were on the phone for 5 hours, and then nothing. Like, they're like not helping us at all, because like the flight agencies wouldn't do, like, there were no direct flights, and they don't tell us about the flights that go like where you would switch like agencies or whatever. And so we had 2 friends from our class that were leaving to go back to different states in America, and their flight was that night. So like, we'll pack our stuff and go to the airport and talk to somebody in person, and we'll bring our stuff in case there's a flight tonight. Crazy, but it was just crazy because we left on Monday thinking we were gonna get home on like Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, whatever. And we left on Monday, and we got home on Friday, but we had 2 Thursdays because of the time change. So like, I called home, and I was like, hey, it was 5 a.m. or whatever here, and I was like, I'm going to the airport in an hour. I'm like, have no idea what's going to happen, but I might be coming home today and I might not be coming home at all. And my parents are like, okay, well, like, tell us what's going on. So I told them, like, this is what's happening. We're going to go to the airport, see what we can do, and I'm going to try and come home. So, like, we said goodbye, but it was, like, weird because, like, we couldn't guarantee that we were leaving. Like, goodbye, like, I'm either leaving or I'll see you in the morning because I might be back at, like, 2 a.m. tonight. So we left, we got to the airport, and we had no idea where to go because there's, like, nobody there. It was, like, there's nobody working at the one agency because they didn't start for another half hour or whatever. So we walked through the gates and, like the front, like, area where you can just walk around. And we found, like, a help desk, and we're trying to figure out, like, a flight to get to Canberra to get this emergency passport so that we could then travel internationally. So we went to, and we talked to this lady, and she was very helpful, and then she sent us to the other one. So we grabbed our stuff and walked across the, like, airport again, and she's like, and we couldn't find anybody, and we're trying to look online, and then this lady comes running up to us that had been helping us and was like, hey, like, if you come back, we just found you a good deal that will get you all the way to Canberra. Like, you don't have to switch airports. Like, it'll get you there tonight. It leaves in an hour, so we gotta go quick. And we're like, yes, like, thank you so much. So we went back with her, we bought the tickets, and we left. And we got to Canberra in the morning. So our flight was overnight, then the time changed and whatever, and we got a taxi to the embassy, and we said, we were told that her emergency passport would be ready. So then we'd found online a flight that left at 2 o'clock that day to come home. And we're like, sweet, we're coming home. We're gonna get there today. Like, that's awesome. Like, great timing. And we got to the embassy, and they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, you said, like, that the passport would be ready. Like, we gotta go back to Canada because they're closing the borders on Wednesday. And they're like, oh, like, I'm not gonna have it ready until tomorrow. I'm like, what? So then we're like, okay, well, is there, like, somewhere we can go? Like, so they told us that there was a youth hostel and hotels a 5-minute walk into the city, or we could get a cab. And we're like, oh, well, it's 5 minutes, we'll just walk. 5 minutes was not 5 minutes. It was 2.5 to 3 hours before we found a hotel, and we were walking with all of our stuff that we had brought with us. Like, it was ridiculous. It was heavy. It was a long walk. It was 30 degrees out. It was hot. So anyway, we finally got to a hotel, went back to the embassy in the morning, got the emergency passport, and then they told us at the embassy not to book any of our flights, like, all together, because if one part of it gets canceled, then all of it will get canceled. So, like, just by city to city. I'm like, okay. So we flew from Canberra to Sydney, got to Sydney, no flights the rest of the night, so we had to get another hotel and then fly out of Sydney in the morning to get to Vancouver. So we flew from Sydney to Vancouver, and when we landed in Vancouver, we got Tim Hortons, and then we found a flight to Toronto, and then we flew to Toronto from Vancouver. And when we got to Vancouver, Anna's parents had met us with a car. In Toronto. Yeah. And then we drove from Toronto back to Sarnia, and we stayed in a motel for 2 weeks to do our self-isolation. So it was just crazy getting home, like, through all of that, trying to, like, figure it all out, trying to, like, book as much of it online to use, like, parents' credit cards because ours didn't have a high enough limit, or trying to, like, get hotel rooms for, like, less money, trying to figure out how we're gonna get home. And, like, we were walking and, like, freaking out, and then we'd just pray, and, like, then something good would happen, like, for us. Like, we'd find the hotel, or when we were trying to book a flight, like, we prayed, and then this lady came running out of nowhere. It was like, hey, like, we found you a good deal, like, we're gonna get you on a flight tonight. And, like, just seeing God's provision through us getting home, like, really, like, it was so, like, now I laugh about that experience. Like, that was hilarious. In the moment, I was freaking out. Like, I was stressed out, I was angry, I was frustrated. and like so was Anna. Like it was just not a fun experience in the moment, but like now looking back, I'm like, that was so fun. Like that was hilarious. Like we didn't get to go on outreach, and we were bummed, but like we still had that like little adventure where we had to trust God the whole way to get home, and like we just had to like wait and be patient. But now we're home.
Yeah.
If there's still so much more that went through me, and like what I learned, and other stories that I didn't post, and all that I would love to share. So if people would like to reach out, that'd be awesome.